G'day, I'm Dr. Friday, and this is the Dr. Friday Show, and boy, do we have a show for you. Let's talk about the health care bill. If you're not too sure what it's about, you're going to know a lot more when this show is over. I have got a panel of experts that's going to help us define a little of those misconceptions as well as what we should be prepared for and start saving a little money maybe when it comes to doing it. So on my far right, I've got Barry Burke with Burke Business Advisors. He's a business broker, so he's going to talk a lot about how it's going to affect the self-employed as well as the business owners. Next to me, I have Hank Parrott, Estate and Financial Strategies. He's a certified financial planner. This guy knows money and how to hold on to it. You can't get away from him. No. Of course, I'm Dr. Friday. Next to me, I have Denise Ruiz. She's with Team Wilson Vision Realty Partners, and she, bottom line guys, she knows the real estate in the Tennessee area. This is a girl that knows what's happening in that area, so she's going to help us understand. And at the end, we've got Lee Berry, attorney at law at the Kennedy Law Firm, and we're going to start breaking it down. So let's first start with a myth. Let's talk about, with this 3.8 real estate sale, you've got this whole myth going on.
Yes.
And this myth is basically going to turn around and basically say, if I sell my home, I'm going to have to pay a 3.8% tax, right?
Wrong.
Wrong. Exactly.
That's right.
Wrong. Okay, so basically up on the screen we're going to have, and you guys can see, right here's a workup of exactly how it works. But basically, let's break it down for them. In the tax law, there is already a law that stipulates that if you sell a home for a profit as a single individual, you have $250,000 waiver. The first $250,000 we don't pay tax on. Above the, exactly, let's define that. Profit.
Is that one time in your life? Is
no,
that how it works?
no, that is not one.
Is that
3 out of 5 years.
Yeah, as long as you've lived in the residence 3 out of 5 years.
And it has to be on your personal residence.
All right.
Then on the next one, if you're married, which of course the tax law very rarely works this way, but you actually get $500,000 of profit. So above that, so if you sell your home for $750,000, then we'd be looking at, or in this case, on the scenario, it's $525,000 on a married couple. The only portion that's taxed is the $25,000, right? So that $25,000 is what you're going to be looking at. So it's like a $900 tax, right, that we're going to actually be paying. Still additional tax, but not on all $525,000.
Right.
All right.
Okay,
so
excellent.
now we understand. Now let's talk about an investment. Unearned is what they like to refer to it as, even though a lot of us work really hard to build those assets up, right? So what happens, Hank, when somebody wants to, I don't know, sell something, convert a 401k or sell a business? What do we have then?
Well, if they're selling a business, of course, or selling a real estate, we'll stick with first off. If you're selling the real estate, depending on what your basis is, of course, on the property, but if your basis is going to exceed this amount, this $200,000, you're going to get an additional tax on that. Right. And this is kind of interesting because, you know, Friday, of course, we're talking about the difference between normally short-term gains and long-term gains. Right. And this is going to be on that long-term gain that they're going to have this additional tax.
Right, which of course I can throw as a tax expert one more thing. We have the Bush tax cuts expected to retire at the end of 2012. What happens to long-term gains, Hank?
Oh, exactly. Bingo. Those are going to go up.
Yeah,
now we're going to be at
20%, but you're going from 15 to 23.8% on the exact same situation.
You're looking
from
at
one year to the next.
Right. You're talking about a 50-60% increase in the tax rate on just this one transaction.
So we have that going. The same thing would happen if you sell a business, right? I mean, we still have that same gains.
Same tax rate.
And the thing is that also, people are thinking, well, that means only if I sell $250,000, or it has to be more than $200,000 for an individual and $250,000 for a married couple. But you got to take into account your own income. So if you're making money right now, $50,000 or $60,000, and then you sell it for that, you've also got to add that in. It's not that in addition. A lot of times people keep thinking about how it's only going to be $250,000
the
or
gain
more.
doesn't have
it has
to be
added to
your
your ordinary
added
income, your AGI, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So,
and this is one of the things that people are going to run into, I think, more so, is seeing not only this tax increases that you're going to be facing, again, stocks and bonds, you know, any kind of dividend type income or interest income that's going to be added in there with this additional charge. And keep in mind the impact that's going to have on the business in terms of now that they're getting to keep less, how does that impact other things they might have done with that money?
So now to back up, that's part of the
healthcare. Right. This is all
is
dealing,
not
guys,
just IRS
with
law.
the health care.
Right.
So, and when we're going into this, and we have Lee Berry down there, which is going to be the legal side of things, because he can't really jump in on the tax, which we're throwing in at the poor guy. But on that, there's a lot of misconceptions about how this law is even going to be implemented, right?
Right.
So,
and that's one thing that now that it's been upheld, there's several different layers once it gets to it. It still has to be implemented, and once it's implemented, it has to be interpreted. It's kind of like if they decide to put up a speed limit sign, well, then they have to figure out, well, we're going to put it up, well, then it has to be interpreted. Well, if the sign's knocked down, what's the speed limit? If you don't see it, is it once you get to it? And one of the biggest things I think with this is kind of unintended consequences, which is that, okay, well, we're trying to do something good. We're trying to, going back to the speed limit example, slow people down. Well, who's going to pay for the signs? Who's going to pay for the upkeep on those? Who's going to monitor whether that's a good, these unintended consequences. I think that's one thing that once we go through the implementation and interpretation of these cuts, we'll see some of these
Looks to me like they found a lot of ways to pay for it.
well, the problem is, he's brought up a great point, but I mean, from the accounting standpoint, from the financial plan, we've got to figure out, of course, two sides. How are we going to, protect people and
Right.
help and make sure that we're in compliance when we don't even know really what
What all's
compliance
gonna
is? And this all comes in effect, most of this comes into effect in 2014.
Right.
Now that's just around the corner. I mean, that's barely enough time. As fast as the government, and they're only in office, 6 months a year making plans and doing things, how are we going to actually know this kind of thing? So we're going to talk a lot more about what is exactly in this bill, the kind of taxes that we're going to be dealing with, and how we're going to make this actually make a little bit more sense, give them a couple scenarios maybe so we don't scare them. But I think you guys really do need to figure out how's this affecting you, and what you're going to do to make it work.
This being accounted for? I mean, we've got multiple tax increases here, and there's no accountability where any of this money's going. I mean, is this supposed to be helping to pay for the health care, or is this just a fundraising for the federal government? I mean, what is it?
We're going to leave it on that. We'll be right back with the Dr. Friday Show.